Indiana Fever have officially entered one of the most important seasons in franchise history, and the pressure surrounding this team has never been higher. Just 3 days before opening night, the organization made the kind of brutal decisions that define professional basketball at the highest level. Megan McConnell, Jessica Timmons, and Kayana Traylor were all waived as Indiana finalized its roster for the 2026 WNBA season. To casual fans scrolling through social media, these moves may have looked like ordinary roster transactions, but for the players involved, these moments completely changed the direction of their professional careers. One conversation with a coach or general manager can instantly end months or even years of work. That is the reality of the WNBA, where roster spots are limited, opportunities are rare, and competition is unbelievably ruthless. Unlike the NBA, where organizations can develop players through two-way contracts and large developmental systems, the WNBA leaves almost no room for error. Every preseason game matters. Every defensive possession matters. Every missed shot matters. Players are constantly fighting for survival because there are only 144 total roster spots across the entire league. That means talented players get cut every single year, even when they clearly belong at the professional level. Indiana entered training camp already knowing difficult decisions were coming. The roster simply had too much competition and not enough available spots. Still, when the cuts finally became official, the emotional impact hit hard because these were not players who failed. These were players who competed. Players who sacrificed everything for a dream. Players who spent weeks fighting through exhausting practices, film sessions, and pressure-filled scrimmages hoping to hear that they had made the team. Megan McConnell's story especially captured the attention of fans because it carried such a strong emotional connection to Indiana basketball. As the sister of Indiana Pacers guard T.J. McConnell, she immediately became someone fans wanted to root for. But Megan was not simply relying on her family name. Throughout her college career at Duquesne, she built a reputation as one of the toughest and most relentless defenders in the country. She won Atlantic 10 Defensive Player of the Year honors because of her hustle, intensity, and refusal to back down against anyone. Her game was never built around flashy scoring numbers or highlight plays. Instead, she focused on doing all the small things winning teams need. She pressured opposing guards full court, forced turnovers, fought for loose balls, and created energy every time she stepped onto the floor. That intensity showed immediately during preseason action. Against Nigeria, McConnell played with urgency and determination. She jumped passing lanes, created steals, moved the ball effectively, and looked completely locked in defensively. In limited minutes, she still managed to impact the game positively. Fans could see her fighting for every second of playing time because she understood exactly how high the stakes were. Unfortunately for her, effort alone was not enough to overcome Indiana's crowded backcourt situation. The Fever already have Caitlin Clark running the offense, Kelsey Mitchell providing elite scoring, Raven Johnson bringing perimeter defense, and several experienced guards capable of handling rotation minutes. There simply was not enough room available for another undersized defensive guard. In a different situation or with another franchise, McConnell may have made the roster. But professional basketball often comes down to timing and fit just as much as talent. Indiana prioritized spacing, versatility, and established experience around Clark, and McConnell ultimately became the victim of a numbers game. Jessica Timmons entered camp with a completely different profile. While McConnell's values centered around defense and hustle, Timmons attracted attention because of her offensive upside. The former Alabama guard immediately flashed scoring potential during preseason play. She looked aggressive attacking defenders, confident pulling up from deep, and comfortable playing against professional competition. Her debut against the New York Liberty especially stood out because she scored efficiently and knocked down shots under pressure. There were moments where she looked like the type of microwave scorer every team wants coming off the bench. Players capable of heating up quickly and changing momentum are extremely valuable, especially in a league where scoring depth matters so much. However, preseason basketball can sometimes create misleading impressions. A few strong shooting performances do not always outweigh the importance of defensive consistency, decision-making, and system fit. Indiana's coaching staff clearly prioritized players they trusted defensively and veterans capable of handling pressure immediately. The Fever are no longer rebuilding patiently. Caitlin Clark's arrival changed everything. Expectations exploded overnight. National television coverage increased dramatically. Sold-out arenas became normal. Suddenly the Fever were no longer developing quietly in the background. They became one of the biggest stories in professional sports. That kind of pressure changes roster-building priorities. Indiana is trying to compete now, not 3 years from now. Because of that, The coaching staff ultimately chose reliability and experience over long-term offensive upside. The most surprising cut of all involved Kayana Traylor. Many fans genuinely believed she had earned a roster spot based on her preseason performances. She looked confident, composed, and fearless against elite competition. Against the New York Liberty, she played with the kind of aggressive. Some players appear overwhelmed during preseason opportunities, but Traylor looked ready for the professional level. She maximized her opportunities and gave Indiana every possible reason to keep her. That is why her release felt so shocking. She arguably had the strongest preseason showing among the players competing for final roster spots. Yet even that was not enough. The reality is simple and brutal. WNBA roster limits force impossible decisions. Indiana could only keep so many guards. Front court depth and veteran experience mattered more to the organization than keeping another perimeter player. Unfortunately for Traylor, being talented is not always enough in professional basketball. Sometimes the fit simply does not work. That does not mean she failed. It just means the numbers worked against her. Now that the roster is finalized, one thing is completely obvious. Everything about the Indiana Fever revolves around Caitlin Clark. She is not just the team's best player. She is the face of the franchise, the face of the league, and arguably the most important player in women's basketball today. Indiana has built this entire roster around maximizing her impact. Every decision reflects that goal. Shooting matters because of Clark. Transition speed matters because of Clark. Spacing matters because of Clark. Defensive versatility matters because opponents constantly try to attack her physically. Clark changes the geometry of basketball in ways very few players ever have. The moment she crosses half court, defenses panic. Teams blitz her aggressively, trap her in transition, and collapse instantly when she drives toward the paint. That pressure creates opportunities everywhere else on the floor. Indiana's front office clearly understands this, which explains why the roster emphasizes shooting, athleticism, and pace. The Fever want players capable of thriving in open space because Clark creates more open space than almost anyone in the world. Kelsey Mitchell remains another critical piece of Indiana's championship ambitions. Even though Clark receives most of the media attention, Mitchell is still one of the most dangerous scorers in the WNBA. Her ability to create offense independently takes enormous pressure off Clark. Opposing defenses cannot simply overload toward one player when Mitchell shares the floor. She punishes defensive mistakes instantly. Whether it is transition scoring, catch-and-shoot threes, pull-up jumpers, or attacking off the dribble, Mitchell can score in virtually every situation. The chemistry between Clark and Mitchell may ultimately determine Indiana's ceiling this season. At times last year, their offensive partnership looked unstoppable. Clark's passing combined with Mitchell's scoring ability created explosive stretches where opponents simply could not keep up. But there were also moments of inconsistency involving spacing, pace, and offensive rhythm. Head coach Stephanie White now carries the responsibility of maximizing both stars simultaneously. If she succeeds, Indiana's offense could become one of the most terrifying units in the entire league. Aliyah Boston remains equally important to the Fever's future. Even with all the excitement surrounding Clark, Boston is still the emotional and physical anchor of this team. She provides rim protection, rebounding, interior scoring, leadership, and stability. When Indiana struggles offensively, Boston gives the team a reliable presence in the paint. Defensively, she anchors the interior and protects the rim against elite attackers. Her development remains one of the biggest factors in determining how far Indiana can realistically go this season. The concern, however, is the lack of proven front court depth behind her. If Boston misses time because of injury, the Fever suddenly become vulnerable inside. That possibility terrifies Indiana fans because championship teams need reliable interior depth. While players like Michaela Timmons and veteran forwards provide support, none possess Boston's overall impact. Against elite teams like the Las Vegas Aces or Minnesota Lynx, frontcourt physicality becomes a serious challenge. Can Indiana consistently defend dominant post players? Can they rebound against bigger lineups? Can they survive foul trouble in playoff environments? Those questions still remain unanswered. Another major storyline entering the season involves Lexie Hull's health. Casual fans may underestimate how important Hull is to Indiana's offensive system, but basketball analysts understand her value immediately. Hull's three-point shooting creates critical spacing around Clark. When she shoots efficiently, defenses cannot overload toward Clark without consequences. That changes the entire structure of opposing defensive schemes. Without reliable floor spacing, opponents can aggressively trap Clark, shrink driving lanes, and force Indiana into difficult half-court possessions. Hull's movement without the ball and willingness to knock down open shots help prevent that from happening. Her hamstring injury therefore creates real concern entering opening night. If she misses significant time, Indiana's offense could become noticeably easier to defend. Head coach Stephanie White also enters this season facing enormous pressure. Fair or unfair, expectations surrounding this team are sky-high. Indiana is no longer quietly rebuilding. They are now one of the WNBA's biggest attractions. Every coaching adjustment will be analyzed. Every rotation decision will become a debate on television and social media. Every loss will generate criticism. That pressure comes with coaching a superstar-driven team. White must balance personalities, championship expectations, media attention, and player development all at once. She must also establish defensive consistency because while Indiana's offensive potential is obvious, defense will ultimately determine whether this team becomes a true contender. One thing is absolutely clear about Indiana's roster construction. This team wants to play fast. Everything about the personnel points toward transition basketball. Clark thrives in open space. Mitchell thrives in open space. Athletic wings thrive in open space. The Fever want pace, quick decisions, and early offense. They want opponents constantly scrambling defensively. When Indiana gets stops and pushes the tempo, they become incredibly dangerous. Few teams can match their offensive firepower in transition. The challenge comes against disciplined opponents capable of slowing the game down. Playoff basketball traditionally becomes more physical and methodical. Transition opportunities decrease. Half-court execution becomes more important. That is where Indiana still has something to prove. The national attention surrounding this franchise has completely changed the environment around the team. The Fever are no longer just another WNBA organization. Television ratings have exploded because of Caitlin Clark. Arenas sell out regularly. Media coverage follows the team constantly. Every game now feels like a major event. With that attention comes immense pressure. Every mistake becomes viral online. Every controversy turns into national conversation. Players must handle basketball pressure while also dealing with non-stop media scrutiny. For younger players especially, that adjustment can become mentally exhausting. Indiana is still learning how to balance celebrity-level attention with the daily grind of professionals is the emotional human cost of professional sports. Fans debate statistics and rotations constantly, but for players, these moments become deeply personal. Being waived hurts. Especially after sacrificing so much physically and mentally. Training camp is exhausting. Players fight through injuries, anxiety, and pressure every single day knowing one mistake could end their opportunity. Then suddenly, a coach calls them into an office and tells them the dream is over. That reality deserves acknowledgement. Megan McConnell, Jessica Timmons, and Kayana Traylor all earned respect for how hard they competed. Even though they did not make the final roster, they proved they belong in professional basketball conversations. Their careers may continue elsewhere because talent eventually finds opportunities. The WNBA's limited roster structure creates unbelievably intense competition every year. Talented veterans lose jobs. Draft picks fail to make teams. International stars struggle for opportunities. Every roster decision carries enormous consequences. Indiana's cuts perfectly highlight how unforgiving the league truly is. There simply are not enough roster spots available for all the players capable of competing professionally. The biggest question now is whether Indiana can actually win a championship. The talent certainly exists. Clark's playmaking gives the Fever a chance against anyone. Mitchell remains an elite scorer. Boston anchors the interior. Veterans provide leadership and experience. Role players fit the system. On paper, the ceiling looks extremely high. But championships require more than talent. They require health, defensive discipline, emotional toughness, chemistry, and consistency over a long season. Indiana still feels slightly incomplete compared to some battle-tested contenders. Teams like the Las Vegas Aces and New York Liberty possess championship experience and elite depth. Minnesota brings defensive structure and discipline. Seattle remains dangerous because of veteran leadership. Indiana's potential is undeniable, but potential alone does not guarantee playoff success. Still, the Fever's roster decisions clearly signal ambition. This organization is no longer satisfied with simply being relevant. They want to compete for titles. Another fascinating storyline entering the season involves Caitlin Clark's evolution as a leader. This year feels different because leadership responsibilities naturally increase with expectations. Leadership extends far beyond scoring and passing. It involves accountability. Communication, emotional control, and setting standards daily. Clark's competitiveness is obvious. Her teammates clearly feed off her energy. But as the franchise centerpiece, she now carries the responsibility of helping shape Indiana's culture. How she handles pressure will define much of this season. The Fever also understand the importance of veteran leadership surrounding young stars. Experienced players help stabilize teams during difficult stretches. They understand playoff basketball and know how long professional seasons truly feel. Veteran depth becomes especially important when injuries occur or losing streaks test team chemistry. Indiana's roster construction reflects awareness of that reality. The organization intentionally added experienced players capable of helping younger teammates navigate pressure. Defensively, the Fever still have questions to answer. Offensively, they should be exciting. That much seems guaranteed. But championship teams defend consistently. They communicate, rotate properly, protect the paint, and survive difficult matchups. Raven Johnson's perimeter defense helps significantly. Boston anchors the interior. Veterans bring toughness. But overall consistency remains the key. If Indiana becomes even an above-average defensive team, their offensive firepower could make them terrifying. Expectations surrounding the Fever are both a blessing and a burden. For years, Indiana struggled to remain nationally relevant. Now the spotlight never disappears. Fans expect greatness immediately. Analysts constantly discuss championship possibilities. Social media reacts emotionally to every performance. The Fever must learn how to survive that environment mentally. Not every game will look perfect. There will be losses. There will be ugly performances. There will be criticism. Championship teams survive those moments without fracturing internally. Even with legitimate concerns, Indiana's future still looks incredibly bright. The franchise finally possesses star power, young talent, national relevance, and clear organizational direction. Clark brings generational offensive brilliance. Boston provides stability and leadership. Mitchell delivers elite scoring. The supporting cast offers versatility. If health cooperates and chemistry develops properly, the Fever could become one of the defining teams of this era in women's basketball. The emotional preseason cuts of Megan McConnell, Jessica Timmons, and Kayana Traylor officially closed the door on training camp competition and signaled the beginning of a new chapter. The roster is finalized. The pressure is enormous. Expectations are championship level. Now everything shifts toward results. Can Caitlin Clark elevate Indiana into true title contention? Can Aliyah Boston dominate consistently inside? Can the supporting cast remain healthy and productive? Can Stephanie White manage the pressure surrounding one of the most watched teams in sports? The answers will begin arriving the moment the regular season tips off. One thing is certain. The excuses are gone. The experimentation phase is over. The waiting is finished. It is officially go time for the Indiana Fever.